Welcome back to the Modern Mountain Man Project, everyone. We are right smack dab in the peak of hunting season, plus it can snow any day now. So I want to go over something that I have yet to cover, and that is my car kit when it comes to both backcountry travel as well as overall winter preparedness. If you are living somewhere or traveling through somewhere that gets a lot of snowfall or just bad road conditions, you want to make sure that your car is ready. Some of this is pretty intuitive, some of it's not, so we're going to be going over everything. To start out, the bare bones basics. Tell someone when you're leaving, when you're going to be back, where you're going, etc., etc. Keep people informed, so if something goes wrong, then they can contact authorities for you if you're outside of cell range. Make sure that if you're not dressed appropriately for the weather, that you at least have the appropriate clothes inside your vehicle. So if you want to dress up all fancy, you don't necessarily have to wear your snow coat out, but at least keep it inside the car. Make sure that you have your electronics, like your phone, charged up so that if you are within cell range and you have an emergency, you could get in contact with authorities. Make sure that all your fluids are topped off and are all good to go. Make sure you have a fresh oil change. Make sure your antifreeze is good. Make sure that your wiper / de-icing fluid's good. Check your air filter, make sure that that's clean. Your cabin air filter as well. Check your tires, make sure that they're all season rated. Look for the snowflake mountain symbol. I'll put a picture here in the video. Check your brakes or have someone else check them for you. Go to a place like Les Schwab to make sure that they are ready to go for the season. You also want to check your suspension, or again, take it somewhere where they could check it for you so that you know that you don't have any shocks that need to be replaced that are dead. Make sure that you check your windshield wiper blades or just replace them. I replace mine every 6 to 7 months, so whenever bad weather hits, I know that I'm going to be ready. Check your headlights, make sure that they're all working. Check your tail lights, make sure that they're all working, blinkers, so on and so forth, and potentially add some accessory lights. I added a pair of 3-inch LED road shocks from Harbor Freight. They work great, they're cheap, but they turned out awesome, so I would recommend those. Check your heater, make sure that's blowing out warm air. That goes with the cabin air filter. Make sure that that's clean and that everything's working properly. And also clean out your interior. If you are in an emergency situation where you're pulled off to the side of the road or whatever the case may be, it's better to just have a cleaned out car where you're not worried about having stuff strewn everywhere, and you also have space to move around, again, if need be. You also want to check all of your recovery equipment, make sure that everything's there, it's all in good working order, nothing needs to be replaced. Make sure that you know how to recover your specific vehicle, so practice recovery and practice safe recovery. That means doing things like not using tow balls for recovery and making sure that you know where the appropriate tow points are on your vehicle. Very few vehicles come with dedicated tow points anymore, so make sure you know where to hook up. Things like a screw-in tow point that most vehicles come with nowadays are okay. A rear hitch receiver works great, but again, just check to make sure that you know what your vehicle requires. Similar to reminding you that you should never use a standard trailer hitch to recover yourself or anyone else, even in an emergency, because it is extremely dangerous, I have 3 tips to keep you guys safe and hopefully recovered successfully. Number 1 is to keep any metal objects or heavy, hard objects outside the cab of your vehicle. That means keep them in the bed of your truck, keep them in a toolbox in the bed of your truck, keep them on a roof rack or in a box in a roof rack. Do not keep them inside the cab with you. You can even put them inside your trunk if you have something like a Camry or a Civic, or I don't know, one of the standard sedan cars. You can put it in the trunk, but do not keep it inside the cab with you. The reason why is if you get in a serious wreck, you don't want to have massive pieces of heavy metal flying through the air and possibly injuring you. So make sure that you secure them outside the cab of your vehicle. Tip number 2 is to have more recovery equipment and stronger recovery equipment. That's tip number 3 than you think you need. That means having more straps than you think you need, longer straps than you think you need, more clevis than you think you need, and make sure that they're rated stronger than you think you need. The bare minimum for any of the recovery equipment that I have is 10,000 pounds. Some of the straps that I have are rated at 30,000 pounds max load. Bare minimum is 10,000 pounds. And again, that's the max load. That's not necessarily the working load. The working load is going to be less than that. However, In this car here that only weighs a couple thousand pounds to begin with, even if it's buried all the way up to the axles in mud, it's not gonna get even close to that 10,000 pound limit. So those are the 3 extra tips I have for you guys. Make sure you keep any heavy, hard pieces of metal or even hard, heavy pieces of plastic secured outside the cab of your vehicle. That way, if you get in a bad wreck, it's not gonna be flying around the cab and hurting you. Tip number 2, have more equipment, bigger equipment than you think you need, and stronger equipment, tip number 3, than you think you need. Now let's bring the camera closer and show you guys this gear. We're gonna start off with the most basic equipment that you should carry in your vehicle. Set of jumper cables. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to help jumpstart someone's car or truck at least once a year because no one carries jumper cables anymore. Do yourself a favor, buy a decent set of jumper cables. These aren't necessarily the best ones out there. I bought these right when I started driving. They were one of the first purchases I ever made after getting my license. Got them at AutoZone. It's the Duralast brand. Has this little monitor to show you the voltage that's coming across. Like I say, there's better jumper cables out there. There's stronger jumper cables out there. Just get a decent set of jumper cables, put them in your car. Someone, even if it's not you, will thank you. To go along with that basic stuff, have a spare tire, preferably a full-size spare, which is underneath the cover panel thing. So hope y'all forgive me for not removing all this to show you the spare tire for my car. But believe it or not, most cars do not come with spare tires nowadays. So that's something that you have to potentially add on extra. So consider that if you are shopping for a new vehicle. To go along with a spare tire, flat tire, puncture tire, stuff like that, a tire inflator, aka a compact small air compressor. This is from Harbor Freight. Very cheap, inexpensive, but has worked. It's definitely seen some better days, but it has worked. I have even used this twice to inflate one of the tires on my truck. The tires on my truck are 37 inch by 13 and a half with a 17-inch rim or something like that. Big tires, and that little guy did it. Took a little while, but it did it. And going along with that idea, if you get a flat, you might want to carry a flat repair kit. I don't have that represented here. I actually have that in one of the boxes on my roof rack. But nevertheless, that would go along with the spare tire and the tire inflator. It might be a good idea if you're far in the back country to have a flat tire repair kit. They're cheap, they're easy to use. Watch a video on how to do it and you should be fine. It's pretty simple to do. Then we're getting into the more serious recovery. Bungee rope versus recovery strap versus chain. And I don't have a chain here, but back in the day when I first started driving, I relied on chains for my recovery efforts and they worked, but they definitely have their drawbacks. There is no give in a chain. There's no stretch in a chain. This Bungee recovery rope does stretch and you get some kinetic energy from that as you're trying to pull someone out. Works really great. Does have its drawbacks though. Chains are also pretty heavy and they can fail. However, there's some applications where you need chains over a recovery rope or a recovery strap, such as if you were trying to winch yourself out using a high lift jack. And we'll talk about high lift jacks here a little bit later. Nevertheless, I prefer overall the kinetic recovery rope and then also having at least one recovery strap that is just a standard flat recovery strap. I believe this is a 30,000 pound test recovery strap or max break and load recovery. So really overkill, but nevertheless, just goes back to that idea of max braking strength. This is a max braking strength of 10,000 pounds. And then back here, this little guy, this is what I call at least a tree saver. And you can see again, maximum capacity, 30,000 pounds. Make sure that you have stuff that is heavily weighted, heavily rated. I call this a tree saver. And that's because if you are going to winch yourself out, whether you're using an actual winch or whether you're doing it manually using a high lift jack or a come along, this will help protect a tree that you are winching off of. You may not care. It may seem like something you don't need to worry about. But I just prefer to be kind to nature, be kind to the trees, especially if it's not your property. If you are passing through private property, I'm sure that that private property landowner would really appreciate it if you protected their trees when you were winching yourself off of them. So a little tree saver strap can come in really handy. Now, in the same vein as kinetic recovery rope versus strap versus chain, classic metal clevis versus the synthetic ones, the rope ones nowadays. As you can see, I am a firm believer in the metal ones. That's just because, again, everything is much heavier rated than it needs to be. The breaking strength of most of those synthetic rope clevises are only, I think, usually at about 10,000 pounds, maybe lower sometimes. And that just, I don't like that. I don't like the idea that I'm going to have any piece failing me. Now, the flip side to that, there is an argument to be made that for the pieces of the recovery effort that's in the middle, and hopefully I'm putting up a diagram here and not just talking with my hands. So you have your tree that you're winching off of, and ideally you would have a metal clevis with that one, okay? This one probably is not gonna break. You only have this one strap going around a tree, and then you have that clevis. Probably gonna be safe there. You only have this one strap you gotta worry about. If then you are connecting to another longer strap or recovery strap, a recovery rope like this, or something where you are connecting multiple pieces of recovery equipment, that's where the synthetic ones might come in handy, because those are the sections, those center sections are the ones that I personally would be more concerned about failing, and not necessarily either far end. On that same note, you aren't able to use the soft synthetic ones on certain recovery points of vehicles because it can fray that synthetic rope. Ergo, the metal ones are better. What am I driving at and just ranting at for all this time? Have both. I really need to do better and carry a couple synthetic ones just in case the situation arises where that would be a safer bet. Either way, make sure again that whether you are using metal clevises or synthetic ones, that you have them way heavier tested and rated than you need them to be to recover your vehicle. So a couple more things on clevises here. If you are going to use metal clevises, I really prefer the pin style like this. I completely discourage the use of the screw-in style, because what will happen is that screw will get stuck and you won't be able to undo it. If you do have these screw style clevises, or those are the kind that you prefer for whatever reason, have a set of vice grips or another sturdy set of pliers in order to undo that pin and unscrew it. Some of those pins do have a hole on the flat bit here where you could put a screwdriver through and also unscrew them. But this is just the ones that I prefer so that you don't have to worry about that. And now you could tell that these are a little different because I have these guys instead of the standard pins, and these are called mollies. These are just fencing wire, steel cable, anything you could get your hands on, wrapped around, made into a circle like that, and then threaded through the pin. I prefer this because during the winter time, when you're probably going to be wearing gloves, those small little pins where you have to try to pull them out with just like the little tips of your fingers, pain in the ass. Again, that's kind of where you may want to have a set of vice grips or an extra screwdriver to undo those pins. But if you just do this, you don't have to worry about that. I had to take down the larger equipment that usually rides on the roof rack to show y'all. We're going to start out with the high lift jack. Now, the high lift jack is a bit of a controversial tool. It's a dangerous tool, and I'm just going to tell you, first and foremost, do not buy or use a high lift jack that is not a legit made in America high lift jack. Don't get the Harbor Freight one. That's only like 15 to 20 bucks cheaper than the made in USA legit one. Just buy the real deal. The metal quality is better, the machining's better, everything is better with the real ones. So just stick with that. This one specifically probably doesn't look like your standard high lift jack that you see riding on most Jeeps. This is a first responder high lift jack, specifically designed for fire departments, EMS, people who are going to be doing rescue work around vehicles. So it has some different attachments and stuff that are different from your standard high lift jack, but nevertheless, it's a high lift jack. We're not going to get into all the specifics of this model. Now, these are great not just for jacking up your car to change a tire. They're also great to jack up your car if you need to do something like put a recovery board underneath a tire that's sunk in the snow, sunk in the mud. They work great for that. And as you can see, I use my gear. This isn't for show. I actually recover using this gear. So it's great for that. You can also winch using a high lift jack. It takes some practice. I've done it before. Hopefully, again, I'm putting a picture in here to show you guys I'm not just pulling your leg, but you can use these guys to winch. Like with all this stuff, you need to practice. You need to make sure that you have the gear for it. And ideally, that's where a chain would come in handy. You would have a short length of chain attached through this eye here, and then another chain attached to the vehicle. Then as you're winching it up, you have a third piece of chain connected to the base of the winch, or the base of the high lift jack rather, so that as you get the tension up, as you winch all the way up, you're able to take the length of chain that's at the base, connect it to the length of chain that's connected to the vehicle, release tension, take the chain off of the foot here, so on and so forth, keep going. You are now winching using a high lift jack. So these are great tools, and there's a couple things that you can get to make them even better. I made this one because I know some of you are saying you can't use a high lift jack on a Subaru because those are a welded body, a unibody or whatever they're called. So I made this to go with this high lift jack. It's just a piece of square tubing that I cut some channels in. If you guys are interested in the specifics of how I made this, and this is obviously V1, you could tell that's very rough and rusted at this point, so it needs a little bit of cleaning up. But nevertheless, if you also have a Subaru and want to know how you can easily, without modifying anything on your car or the jack, use a high lift jack with your rig, this is what you're looking to build. And if you want to see how it's done, let me know in the comments. The next thing you could look to get is something like this, where it attaches to the foot of the jack and then also your rim to then jack you off the ground. Either one works well with the Subaru. They have different applications, just like all this stuff here. Next part that I want to talk about, since I just mentioned it, is recovery boards. These come in pairs. This is just a cheap set that I got off Amazon, or this is one of the cheap set that I got off Amazon. They've worked well the couple times that I've used them. They do have their faults. Like you could see here that I was able to break off, melt off something, a couple of the nubs here. So they're not perfect. Again, these are the knockoff ones, so I'm not saying that the legit Yak tracks or whatever would have this issue. But for what they were designed to do, which is give you a little bit of traction, give you a solid platform for you to drive across if you're stuck, they work well. Now, being an all-wheel drive car, I have had problems with only having 2 boards. So if you also have an all-wheel drive car, consider getting 2 pairs. I'm not saying that you have to, but consider getting 2 pairs, because what happens is, just like in a vehicle that has a non-limited slip differential where, you know, you could get the one tire fire, same thing here. If you have traction to 2 or 3 of the wheels, it might just be spinning that 4th wheel, and then you could just be running around the car going to all 4 corners with your 2 boards and, you know, basically pushing the boulder uphill at that point. So consider getting 2 pair, not saying that it's necessary. Then with the shovel, this is, again, one of the most basic pieces of recovery equipment that you could get or carry with you is a shovel. There are collapsible versions. I prefer a solid version where I don't have to worry about breaking it down or collapsing it. Obviously, you have to store it in its completely solid state, but nevertheless, I prefer a shovel that doesn't collapse down. I also prefer a spade shovel instead of like a flat shovel that a lot of snow shovels are. And that's because not all snow that you're going to encounter is light, fluffy stuff like you would use one of those shovels for, or that those shovels were designed for. A lot of the snow that's going to be like on the side of the road or that you might get stuck in is going to be slushy, it's going to be icy, it's going to be tough, and you're going to need to cut through it. That's where the spade comes in handy. So in my opinion, a solid shovel, non-collapsible, with a spade instead of a flat bottom. That's what I would go for. But what happens if you are totally stuck, you can't pull yourself out, and you have to wait for help to arrive? Well, that's where all the survival equipment comes into play. Let me get this out of the way and start talking about it. Now again, some of this is pretty basic. Road flares. I really highly recommend real road flares, the ones that make a flame, not LED electric road flares. Those can run out of battery. These you don't have to worry about running out of battery. These guys produce a flame for 30 minutes. There's a 3-pack in here, so you have 90 minutes here, 90 minutes here, and that's if you're using them individually, of course, but nevertheless. These, I would say, are much more advantageous than the LED electric ones, besides the fact that you don't have to worry about them running out of batteries or if they're charged or anything like that. You can make fire with these, and obviously in a winter emergency situation, making fire might be important. I'm not saying that you need to, because sometimes you can't, sometimes you're stuck in your vehicle, you know, there's all sorts of different scenarios out there. But being able to have that ability might be advantageous for you. Something that I don't have represented here is a flashlight or a headlamp. I prefer a headlamp because obviously you could hold them as a flashlight. The Petzl, I will put the exact model here in the video, but I have a pair of Petzl headlamps that are a rechargeable battery. I love those guys. I've had them for a couple years now, and they just rock. So I really recommend that you have at least one of those. I carry one as my everyday carry during the winter time. If you want to see my everyday carry video, I will leave that link down below in the description, as well as the video where I talk about all the different lighting implements that I use here on the homestead, including headlamps. And if you're stuck in your car for a long period of time, you want some way to keep yourself warm besides your clothes. So an emergency blanket or a wool blanket, or better yet, a combo of both, is great. Great is subjective, of course. It's great for the scenario. It's gonna serve you well, is a better way of putting it. No one wants to be in an emergency situation where you're stuck on the side of the road having to spend the night in the middle of the winter time. However, if you have a couple emergency blankets that are wool or like this reflective material, you'll hopefully survive. On that note, logic would tell you to keep your windows rolled all the way up if you are having to stay the night in your car. However, you are going to produce a lot of condensation. So consider cracking at least one window to release a little bit of that condensation out. However, with that, you are going to be releasing some of that warm air out and cold air in, so you need some way to keep yourself warm. Similar to the headlamp, a couple other things that aren't shown here: crampons, extra clothes, winter boots, anything that you might not wear but might need to walk away from your vehicle in case of a winter emergency. Roads can be icy, the shoulders can be icy, so crampons are beneficial. If you don't ordinarily wear winter boots or winter shoes, hiking boots, stuff like that, consider carrying a spare inside your car just in case of an emergency. And then again, extra clothes, winter clothes. This is kind of like I mentioned at the beginning of this video. If you are going somewhere where you don't want to be wearing your wool coat and everything like that, like you're walking into a blizzard because you're going to a fancy dinner or a party or something like that, at least keep it inside the car in case you need it. Also, something that's not here, but you might want to consider, something like a hand warmer. You know, ordinarily people don't talk about that for like survival stuff, but if you put those inside your clothes, against your chest, allow that to kind of go with the blood circulating around in your body, that will help heat you up. So might be beneficial to keep a couple hand warmer, foot warmers inside here. And then again, you may not just hold them inside your hand like they were intended, you put them inside your clothes, but nevertheless, stuff like that can help you. Also, again, not represented here. Part of the reason I'm making this video is as a little bit of a test for myself to see what I need. Toilet paper. If you're stuck for a long period of time, you might need some toilet paper. so keep some inside your rig. Protein bars. You don't necessarily need food because generally speaking, you could go about 3 weeks without any food and survive just fine. But just as a morale boost, keep some snacks inside your car. And then to go along with that, water. Now this is tough during the wintertime because you can't leave it inside your car or else it's going to freeze and bottles like this might explode. So you have to be cognizant about every time you're going on a long trip, going into the backcountry, bringing some water with you so that you always have some. Like I say, it's not spilled, it's not, bottle isn't popped, it's not frozen. You have to take it every time you go out. Then also consider carrying some liquid IV or other electrolyte drink mix. I really like liquid IV, specifically the watermelon flavor. That stuff is delicious, and like always, I'm not being sponsored. I'm a nobody. Liquid IV doesn't even know I exist, but nevertheless, this is good stuff. That's all I got for you in this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And as I said at the beginning, do your own research, practice recovery with your own vehicle and your own recovery equipment to see what works best for you. Like a lot of my videos, I am not saying that this is the best kit, the end-all be-all kit. This is just the equipment and the kit that works well for me and my circumstances. So do your own research, do your own practice, and figure out what is going to work for you and your circumstances. And hey, maybe make your own YouTube video about it. So with that, you guys, like I say, hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave the video a like, comment down below if you have any comments or questions, share the video with someone you think also might enjoy it, and subscribe if you have yet to do so. Got more Modern Mountain Man videos coming, so if you enjoyed stuff like this, subscribe. Thank you for watching. Think for yourself, shoot straight, and I will see you next time.